All right. I think we can start then. Thank you everyone for connecting today in the occasion of International Mother Earth Day 2025. I'm Nicolo. I'm part of the Youth for Ecocide Law core team, and today I will be moderating this session called Nature's Advocates for Ecocide Law. It's my pleasure to be here today with many speakers from all continents around the world and to host this event organized by Youth for Ecocide Law and the Stop Ecocide Students Ambassador group. So, as you know, this year is Earth Day, 25th year since its establishment. And it's that moment of the year that reminds us of the responsibility we have to promote harmony with nature and with our planet. So what we want to stress today is the importance of establishing legal frameworks that recognize severe environmental damage as the crime of ecocide, and also the role of young people that are leading in so many ways to ensure that environmental protection is achieved worldwide. And the urgency for this is clear, and the science is clear about this. So far, 75% of the Earth's surface has been altered by human activity, and 6 out of the 9 planetary boundaries have been crossed. And especially young people are suffering and will be suffering from such alteration, as our future generations will also do. So what we want to stress today is the importance of equitable development that sees young people at the center, and also the establishment of legal frameworks that can really make sure that such change is enabled. So today we want to celebrate some of the key achievements in ecocide law. We want to stress the importance of young people in advancing environmental justice, and also to raise awareness on ecocide law progress, while of course also making sure that all of you environmental advocates or just enthusiasts are connected and get to know each other. So it's my pleasure to introduce you the speakers for today's webinar. Unfortunately, Saoirse Exton, she couldn't make it because of the flu, and she apologizes and she sends her regards. But today we have an incredible lineup of speakers, starting from Alex Putzer. He's a UN Harmony with Nature expert and a World Conservation of Environmental Law member from Italy. We have Salsalina Larasati. She's a law student and sustainability advocate from Indonesia. We have Mario Galbert, who's the executive coordinator of the Caribbean Youth Climate Council from Jamaica. And we also have Michelle Peris Mudibo Tendet and Charity Mwabu from the Tendet Foundation in Kenya. So thank you very much for joining us today. And before we start the discussion, I want to leave the floor to Peris and Charity that will open our minds and our hearts to the power of storytelling in environmental advocacy with a spoken arts performance. So please, Peris and Charity, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you so much, Nicolo. So Paris and I will be performing a piece that shows the conflict between implementers and the communities who are supposed to benefit, how this conflict has led to injustices faced by the communities on the ground because of what was meant to benefit them instead of harming them. This piece calls for unity and genuine intentionality for the implementation of solutions. We call for prioritizing the welfare of the people that we're supposed to protect. So if the polluters should pay the non-polluters, then we should get what is meant for them. So we are going to start. Yes. I have some amazing news for you.
My father, my land.
A way to make your land new.
The liars, you're all bad men.
But it's the grass that she longed for.
It's over, she's dead.
I can find a way to restore it.
We were the sacrifice, all for the brand.
Can't you see that we're trying to make them pay?
Our cows are dying.
And give you all a say?
Without the grass, you were longing.
Can't you see that there needs to be rules?
Is this the future we were hoping?
For the carbon sinks to work?
To see our dreams on the other side of the bullet.
For the polluters to pay?
Within but beyond.
For the land to be restored?
A future that is caged in electric fences and a gun.
Mother Earth is calling out. Wake up. In the words of our ancestors, usipoziba ufa, utajenga ukuta. But now the wall is full of cracks because you thought you could step without tracks, treading on nature with unregrettable audacity. Oh, so now you see we're losing biodiversity. When you had your chance, all you did was take and take and take.
Can you hear her cry? Mama Arthi is left without. Global warming a bane across the plains, and all just because we didn't let ourselves and nature stick to our own lanes. Her children living in drought. In this flooding rain, nothing can sprout. Yet when you took, you had no doubt. Now in your actions, we're living in loss. Climate change all across. And there's still a gap of unity all across.
Unite.
Unite.
Unite. If the polluters should pay, then why should the non-polluters die for it?
If survival is our common goal, why should we have to fight for it?
Through our culture, the ancestors will still engage. Through science, technology, and governance, we're out of the insolence cage. So why can't we both unite?
Doomed to be on the bitter side of history. Is this the verdict of my destiny? The more you wade, the more I fade.
Our best shot today is to unite to clear a way. For till then, in fear Mother Earth lays. We cannot rest till the time it'll be nay.
But for now, let's pray and act before we pay, uniting and collaborating, choosing our heritage.
For a better tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Paris and Charity. Maybe we can give them a round of virtual applause in the chat. And this really shows us how, advocacy goes beyond policy and law, which of course are fundamental, but there are so many other ways that young people are already implementing to make sure their voices are heard and that their perspectives are heard. So thank you for this very powerful representation of your thoughts, Paris and Charity. And let's move forward to the next section and let's get deeper into what ecocide law means before leaving the floor to our speakers. I just want to give you a very quick overview of what is ecocide law, which to many represents a paradigm shift in environmental law. It is referred to as any unlawful or wanton acts committed with knowledge that there is a substantial likelihood for severe and widespread or long-term damage to the environment being caused by those acts. Environmental destruction is something that falls within the definition of ecocide law, and what Stop Ecocide International and Youth for Ecocide Law as a youth component are advocating for is the inclusion of ecocide as a fifth crime in the International Criminal Court, together with genocide and crimes against humanity, war crimes. And in the past 6 months to 1 year, there has been a catalyzation of actions taken by states to recognize internationally ecocide, starting from September 2024, when Vanuatu, Fiji, and Samoa have formally proposed amending the Rome Statute to add ecocide as the fifth international crime. And 1 month later, the Democratic Republic of Congo became the first country to officially endorse the proposal. There are some other cases also of non-state actors like the United Nations Association of Germany that adopted a motion backing ecocide recognition, and the Green Party of Germany that included ICC ecocide amendment support in its election program. So these are just some examples that show you how the global movement is advancing. And also at the national level, there has been some quite remarkable achievements. For instance, Azerbaijan's parliament passed the first reading of a national ecocide bill in October 2024. Scotland also lodged an ecocide bill in November 24. And Peru Justice Commission approved the motion to criminalize ecocide in that same month. This year, in 2025, Turkey proposed a penal code amendment to criminalize ecocide, and Argentina as well introduced a bill addressing environmental crimes that explicitly include ecocide. And lastly, the EU member states are currently also aligning their national laws with the revised EU Environmental Crime Directive, which requires to address acts comparable to ecocide by May 2026. So at the national, at the supranational, at the international level, action is being taken to recognize ecocide. But of course, a lot still needs to be done. So let me give the floor now to our first speaker, Alex Putzer. Alex is, as I said, a member of the Work Commission on Environmental Law. He has been a Fulbright Schumann alumni who researched the rights of nature at New York University, and he's also a United Nations Harmony with Nature expert, and he's currently studying the incorporation of rights of nature in urban settings and policy. So, Alex, the floor is yours. Please tell us how young people are taking action and what are some tools, some strategies to advance some ecocentric frameworks in environmental law that you would like to share with us.
Thank you so much, Nicola, for this kind introduction, and thank you for being part of this. A question, how long do you want me to speak, just so I can leave enough space for all the other wonderful speakers?
I would say 5 minutes, but I'm sure it's going to be extremely interesting.
5 minutes is fine. Totally. No, 5 minutes. So as you said, perfect. Hi, everyone. Happy Earth Day, which I noticed today that it sounds a little bit like birthday. Happy Earth Day to you. So I thought that was cute. My field is the rights of nature, which is similar and different than ecocide, but it still tries to protect nature, the environment, for its own sake. And as Nicola said, I've been working to cities, but also I looked at mapping global initiatives. And the thing that came to mind when I got this invite to speak here, and how the tools that young people can use to advance ideas of environmental justice, anecdote. And I don't have a presentation per se, because I'm also just technically not good enough to incorporate all of the zoom in and zoom out. But the story I want to talk to you about is here in the United States, in California, Los Angeles, Malibu. So quite a wealthy area in the world. And here's a school focused on marine science. And one of the students there, this was 10 years ago in 2014, is this kid here in the center. And this is Kira Cutter. And she was an avid student, a good student. She's still around. But at the time, with her parents, documentary talked about the suffering of orcas, of whales, she wanted to take action. Now, what happened? Her school every year planned a trip to SeaWorld. So an ocean zoo, basically, where orcas helped to perform circus tricks, basically. Now, what she did, she started to talk to all of her school colleagues to not go there anymore because of the unethical treatment of these orcas. And at one point, she gathered enough momentum so that the school trip. And then it started to roll. There were cascading effects. More and more things happened. And together with two other friends of hers, and this is a picture of that. That's Kira here to the right. They collected 1.2 million signatures for stronger orca protection. And that led to a couple of legislations in Malibu itself to this proclamation that tries to save whales and dolphins from captivity, which you can see here, those living in captivity, but also gave it the right to free and safe passage. A couple of months later, San Francisco had also the Free and Safe Passage of Whales and Dolphins Act. Became bigger on a state level, which actually the Orca Welfare Act, which was passed in 2016. So she saw the documentary, she was passionate about it, collected the signatures, and it went bigger, 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 and it became those two laws, that proclamation and that law became part of this global rights of nature movement, where we see here this global map and law do anything if they don't also inspire a change of action. And so the last thing that I want to say in this context is that all of this movement in California led to this, which is whale safe. I just wanted to show you this as an inspiration. Whale safe is a bit like a Google Maps for whales in a sense. Angeles. This program is basically tracking every whale that is here in the Bay Area and around. And it tells ships where these whales are so that ships can ride around them, because ship collisions, it's a major cause of death, of premature death for whales, but also for economic damage of ships. That whole raising awareness of the well-being of whales, going from getting them out of captivity into the ocean waters, but also in the open waters, as Nicola said, there are a lot of human activities. There's a lot of human activity going on, and keeping them safe there, this just became a bigger and bigger movement. Whales, how important whales are for the global ocean ecosystem, and how important oceans are for generally just the way to address climate change. We can say that Kira, who's right here, became in making global change. And the conclusions that I want to take from this brief little story, and I'm already at the 5-minute mark, I noticed that, is that change will take time. This has been 10 years, and this whale safe has been online for 2 years. So it took 8 years to really develop all of this. So as urgent as it will take time, but we need every single one of you to really fight this and to advance ecosystem rights, the rights of nature, to live in a more environmentally just world. And with this, I stop, so I don't want to overstep my time, and I hope I could provide you some information. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alex. And this was indeed very insightful, and it's very inspiring to see how this young lady who just followed her gut, and what she was thinking was wrong, to see orcas detained in zoos. She mobilized other people, like-minded people, and she even managed to get 2 laws passed, so to have such a remarkable impact on the society. And she didn't wait for anyone to take action. She just went straight. So this is a fantastic example that you shared with us, and thank you so much for that, Alex. We'll now move forward to the next speaker, to Laras Salsalina. She's a law student at Universitas Gadjah Mada, and she's also an advocate on climate change and indigenous rights. And so, Laras, thank you so much for being with us today. I want to ask you, why is Ecocide important for indigenous rights, especially from a youth perspective? And also, how do you think we can connect sustainable development with indigenous communities, knowledge, and practices? I know it's a very broad question, but please tell us more about your insights. And I know you also have a presentation, so feel free to also share.
Yes, thank you, Nicolo. I'll be sharing my presentation now. All right, is my screen visible?
Yes, we can see that.
Okay, great, perfect. Hold on. Okay, I'm not sure what happens to this, but let me just get this straight. So, hi everyone, I'm Laras, and I'm an advocate for Indigenous rights. This is because I've seen the many sufferings of Indigenous people being victimized even when they don't want to be seen as a victim, at least from what I've learned from my lecturers. What's interesting is how the Indigenous community are actually agent of change in climate change, which is what I will be addressing now. Before anything, I know I'm a law student, but please do not seek this as a legal insight or legal advice, because this is just a perspective from youth. Any legal insight must be consulted to the expert themselves. All right, I'll answer the first question. Why does Ecocide hold importance for upholding Indigenous rights from a youth's perspective? Well, first things first, we need to understand that there is a prevailing economic interest that threatens Indigenous rights, which pertains to Ecocide. How? As you can see, the economic interest typically utilizes Indigenous land to explore natural resources or to build commercial buildings. This is a non-consensual land occupation which forcefully migrates Indigenous people. Because of the forced migration and the non-consensual land occupation, we see Indigenous people suffering. We see them losing their homes, their sources to access natural resources, especially with how they are highly dependent on forests or their lands. Even when they are highly dependent on nature, they know how to manage nature sustainably. And little did you know, they have always inherited the practice of sustainable lifestyle. So, if the non-consensual land occupation and forced migration were criminalized, it can be constituted as ecocide. When ecocide is formed as an international crime, we can see how Indigenous people have more access to justice. This is because Indigenous people need our voices to be listened. They need us to amplify their voices as agents of change in climate change. And based on a study, it is seen that if ecocide were an international crime, there can be a duty to react and to peak international environmental cooperation.
Salsalina, I'm so sorry to interrupt you. We cannot really see the presentation. Would you be able to maybe try and reshare it?
Yeah, of course. Let me try again. All right.
All right, now we can see that.
All right, this was my first slide.
Thank you.
I'll move on to the second slide. Thank you so much, Nicolo, for notifying me about this. All right, moving on to the second one. As we conclude the first question, we can see how the importance of ecocide law is to actually give them access to justice and recognize their stance as agents of change in climate change, not only as victims, but to include them in amplifying voices to preserve nature. Now, when it comes to talking about sustainable development, just like what Nicolo has mentioned, it can be a really broad concept to understand, but let's break it down together. As one knows, sustainable development is not only about the development that upholds intergenerational equity, but it is also about preserving the right to a healthy, clean, and sustainable environment. What does a healthy, clean, and sustainable environment mean to Indigenous people? let's say, because they are highly dependent on nature, the violation of indigenous rights can threaten their cultural expression and identity because nature is their identity, and this is seen in their sustainable lifestyle. So when we damage the environment, we are also damaging the sustainability of indigenous environment. Now, we can also see from the perspective of preserving natural resources, which is also a part of the sustainability of the environment, because the thing about indigenous people is that they preserve natural resources for future generations. And if they are not guaranteed with safety and security, we can see their population shrinking over time, not having the space to just continue living. One would say that their cultural expression may be too much of a traditionalist practice, but we need to see how their traditional practice actually helps us in adapting to climate change. And in a study that my lecturer did, which has a journal published, she cited that indigenous people are actually the guardians of forests, the first guardians of the natural landscape we have. So they preserve sustainable development for us. Now, moving on to the advice that I can give you is actually the 3 R's. I want you to remember the 3 R's, which are research, read, and raise your voice. First, why do you need research? You need to familiarize yourself with indigenous rights, customs, and issues pertaining to the violations. Make yourself familiar with the treaties that uphold indigenous rights or national laws from whichever country you come from. This is because you will understand the main concept of what constitutes as indigenous rights and why we need to protect them. Now, you need to also continue reading because indigenous rights are usually violated in the most unpredictable ways. Let's say, at least in Indonesia, it is usually caused by land commercialization with failed projects on their lands without them having their space to live anymore. Keep yourself updated because this relates to the third advice that I could give you, which is to raise your voice. When you raise your voice, you are also helping indigenous people, amplifying their advocacy, amplifying their stance as agents of change and climate change for the better. You can hold discussions like what we're having right now, write a research paper, publish it, bring the topic of indigenous rights to the table of discussion on environmental justice, maybe in national forums or international forums, which is something I've been doing for the past 1 year through my participation at the 19th Conference of Youth and the Ecocide Youth Forum, and also maybe try working with them because, again, they are not victims, but they just need you to amplify their voices, given that they have the role of being agents of change. Since this is my last slide, I'd like to thank each of you for listening to my voice. I hope this is the start of an inspiration to keep amplifying your voices for Indigenous rights and eventually getting the legislation of ecocide as an international crime. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Salsalina. And I think your message is very clear. It's very powerful as well. And the read, research, raise your voice are definitely tips that anyone should take in their hands in order to be a good advocate. You should also be informed, and it's so important to also share the information that we have, the knowledge we have, and especially to include all those people that perhaps don't have the same chances as we do, as many indigenous people around the world. And especially about young people, this came to my mind listening to you. I read this very powerful sentence which says, we do not inherit our land from our ancestors, we borrow it from our children. And this really gave me the importance of including young people and also keeping them in mind when policies and laws are adopted, because in some ways we're borrowing the land from them. And it's now my pleasure to leave the floor to our artists who previously performed, Michelle and Charity, which are not just storytellers, they're also environmental and climate advocates. So it's my big pleasure to invite Michelle and Charity. Michelle is the founder of the Tended Foundation. She used to be a Millennium Fellow and also the chairperson of the University of Nairobi Anthropology and Gender Student Association. And she's joined by Charity, who's a climate advocate and civil engineer, and she works with Paris Attended Foundation. So my question for both of you is, since you performed your spoken art performance, what storytelling approaches do you think effectively communicate environmental protection to diverse audiences, not just youth? And how can arts and culture help advance ecocide law? Please, the floor is yours, Paris, if you want to go first.
I think I'll go first for the both of us. So Paris and I have been working together at Tendet, and beyond Tendet, we've been working together as artists. So we found a way to incorporate art and music into climate advocacy. So what we found is when we do these spoken words, when we do our art, it also makes people ask questions. So it also allows people to relate with us. They're able to relate with our feelings and our situations in real time. So, like the presentation we had today, you could see how we feel about ecocide. You could hear about the stories that are in Kenya, even for those who haven't joined from Kenya, because we told a story about a situation that was actually happening here, where someone thought that they were helping the community, but instead they grabbed their land and they could not graze, and a little boy's father was shot. And so with such storytelling ideas, it brings out how real these situations and how real going like having a project without really doing the research, as Salsalina had said, without really doing your research, it when you storytell, it really tells you how it affects like one individual person, and the feelings of one person matter, and they can represent how a whole community feels. So this is the particular tool that we choose to use to advance climate justice. I think Paris has some more to say after this.
Yeah. So, hi everyone again. Adding on what Charity has said, what we do at the Net Foundation, we work a lot with Indigenous peoples and local communities. And we've started obviously here in Kenya, in Western Kenya. And it's so easy. It's easier for people to express themselves through art. Not just singing, not just our spoken word, but they also express themselves through drawing, paintings, and storytelling is a really engaging form of communication, and it really makes people comfortable to share their stories. So that's really why we promote artistic expression, and it's amazing for us to promote what we do ourselves. So yeah, that's really about it. Most of the times we do our advocacies, we do it to raise awareness on climate justice. Yeah, so yeah, we really do promote artistic expression.
Thank you so much, Paris and Charity. And indeed, storytelling is one of those tools that not just shares knowledge, allows to share knowledge in an easy way, but also creates an emotional connection, right? And it's more easy that people relate to a song or to a poetry than to a policy paper most times, especially if they don't have the opportunity to study, to go to the university. This doesn't mean that they have to be left behind. Everyone can take action if they feel the urgency to do so. And I think your spoken art performance before was a fantastic explanation and showcase of that. So thank you so much for that, and also for your contribution. I will now move to our last speaker, Mario Galbert, who's the executive coordinator of the Caribbean Youth Climate Council. He's been for over 5 years an environmental advocate and an expert in sustainable development. And he's also the founder and director of the Global Sustainable Development Network. So thank you so much for being with us today, Mario. I know it's early morning in Jamaica, so thank you for taking the time. And I want to ask you, how are young people in the Caribbean specifically taking action in environmental protection? And also, what are you doing yourself to engage young people in advocacy, especially to raise stronger environmental laws? Please, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I hope you hear me very clearly. I hope that is very clear for everyone, in terms of your of audio. So it's very good to be here on this Earth Day. It's a very interesting conversation. I've been listening so very far. And I just want to say that, I started, with the Ecocide movement from as early as COP27. I think was that the first time I engaged with the movement in Sharm el Sheikh at the time. I remember seeing your director running around at the time, Stop Ecocide International, inviting persons to webinar, and that's where I started with the movement. I say that to say this, that, we've come a long way. And so I think from a general perspective as to how we involve young people, it's growing. The conversation is growing. Within the Caribbean region, we have several issues that we face. We have the issue of, lack of stakeholder engagement in environmental policy. We also have the issue of, lack of capacity to engage due to our economical backgrounds and the setup of our countries and our systems. However, what we've been doing over the past 2 years is to ensure that we utilize what we have as it relates to gaining access to different forums, to different networks, and to different socioeconomic groups or NGOs to push our different policies and procedures that we want to follow up as it relates to MEAs and multilateral processes. On one thing, what we've been doing, I know many of you don't engage much with the Caribbean region. I know that for sure because it's evident within the system, international systems. But what have we been doing? I'm not sure how many of you are aware about the conversations around deep spit mining that is currently happening in the region. And deep spit mining, the reason why the Caribbean region is centered around this conversation is because the International Seabed Authority is actually located in my country, Jamaica. And so every year, I think it's March and July, the international community travels to Jamaica to participate in International Seabed Authority's meetings. What do they want to do? There are some countries and, private sector who are pushing to mine the seabed without the regulatory framework. And what has been our position as Caribbean people? We are saying that the seabed should not be touched. We've been doing campaigns in front of the conference center, in front of the International Seabed Authority. We've become one of the strongest voices within the region against deep spit mining. And so we've been pushing different campaigns. We have different people from the Pacific coming to the region, the Pacific people who are, those indigenous people who are strongly connected to the sea itself. We have those, fathers and more who have been on the ground with us pushing for campaign against deep spit mining. And that movement is continuously growing, right? I say that to say this, what is the correlation? We know what's done very bad things, even when the science have said, okay, mining should not continue because it's damaging our environment. We've seen it here firsthand in Jamaica, and we've had organizations, youth groups have spoken about it, and some companies have been fined, the law have been upheld because of these, actions that we've committed. But we've also noticed that there are challenges. There are challenges in the region because the laws that are there, they're either not well implemented, or the fines which are there, companies do what they feel like, and then because they know that they're going to get a small fine, they continue to do it again. And so we've been advocating for reform within our systems. We've been pushing for governments to act even more. And so for us, Ecocide is very important. An Ecocide law is very important. Another thing that we've been engaging with as Caribbean people, and many of you would have known about the historic International Court of Justice movement, climate justice resolution that was put before the court. Caribbean young people were a part of that delegation. They were there. They have been advocating. They were a part of the team that went, with the World Youth for Climate Justice from the Pacific region. And so we may be small in numbers. We may be very small islands, but we try to have a big voice on many of these issues. And so for us, we know what is land rights. We know what is, the rights of Mother Earth. We know what it is like. And so we've been pushing for this. It may not be on the forefront that it's ecocide, because many people may not be aware of the term or of what we're pushing for, but we've been on the forefront. We continue to be on the forefront, and we continue to push. Myself, I want to introduce to you guys what we consider as the Caribbean Youth Climate Council. In 2012, in 2002, we've been pushing for our regions to engage civil society. And so since July 2022, we've had people from different Caribbean islands engaging on climate matters. And so our governments are now aware that whatever they're doing, they are to involve young people from across our countries. And so we've been engaging in the discussions. What I would love to see is some more ecocide law related engagement in the Caribbean region. That's something that I love to have more conversation about, but we are up to it. Our young people are available and they are ready to work. I am available and I'm ready to work with the team. I also want to put forward that in September of this year, we're hoping to host the first ever Caribbean Youth Environment and Climate Change Conference in Kingston, Jamaica from September 10 to 12. And so we're currently doing the planning. We hope to have at least 100 young people together in the region. We hope to also engage our Caribbean ministers and government, either through the policy that we've been doing. And so there is going to be a mass mobilization of our young people closer to September, at least starting in August. And so we'll be having more discussions and engagements on different matters, climate justice and human rights, environmental law. So it's going to be a very broad discussion on different issues which are affecting us, our region, be it climate or environment, but also things which are also impacting on the broader world. And so that is it in a nutshell as to what we're doing, what we've been engaging in, and to show you that, of course, I am ready, and our people from the region, they are also ready, and we're willing to contribute to the discussion around ecocide law. So that is it for me in a nutshell.
Fantastic, Mario. Thank you so much. And yourself are an inspiration, as you took the lead yourself in establishing this council and to address these issues that you identified, the lack of stakeholder engagement, the lack of capacity. So similar to the young lady that Alex was talking about before, you didn't wait for anyone else to take action. You did it yourself. And so praise to you for that. And I think this is a perfect bridge for the last question I want to ask everyone. And maybe for fairness, I will ask it on the other round. So starting from Mario, I want to ask you, Mario, you already told us something about this, but perhaps some more ideas, reflections in a short minute come to your mind regarding what single action can young people take to advance the recognition of ecocide law and environmental regulations in general in their countries or communities?
I think one thing that we need to take as young people, and it may be good if we could do it collectively, is that we need to have what is considered as more push in terms of our governments. So in terms of pushing our governments, I'm not sure if Jamaican governments, are fully aware as to what is ecocide law. What we need to do is first to do, maybe pen a letter, an opinion letter to a news entity. So we've penned the letter to a news entity and introduced the readers to ecocide law. That's the first thing, because you don't need only the governments to do it, but you need the readers and the country to become familiar with it. And so pen your letter. It could be to a media house, it could be a letter that's posted on your Instagram, it could be something, but pen it. And after you pen it, then you can literally put it in a video. Utilize our artistic people who are very good at presenting information to a new mean. But we need to start from somewhere, and if we can do is send it a letter to either a prime minister or a president or a head of state, but pen that letter, tell them what it is, and put it forward to them. That's the way that we can start. And once you pen that letter, you can copy every single minister of your government in that one letter, but pen it to the prime minister or the head of state, and then from there you can move on to another part of your advocacy. But the advocacy starts with ensure that people know what it is, and what it is, you put it in that letter, and then you send it off. From you let them know what it is, you can branch out to different aspects of your advocacy. The different aspects of your advocacy could be a school tour, ecocide law school tour. It could be an Ecocide law online campaign. It could be an Ecocide law competition. But you need to start from somewhere, and starting from somewhere means you must educate first for people to know what is Ecocide law. And once you start from there, then you're good to go. That's how I see it.
That's wise advice, Mario. Thank you. I want to hear everyone very quickly. Maybe Charity Paris, you want to go next?
What I can say is we need to have a radical kind of advocacy, in that I know it's very hard these days to advocate for controversial things. It becomes really scary. Personally, from where I'm standing right now. But I feel like we really need to be brave enough to talk about our experiences, to talk about what's really happening. And yeah, I feel like if we're really genuine with our advocacy, we'll definitely, be able to make strides.
I think to add on to Paris is, as I'm in the civil engineering world and I see a lot of constructions that are starting and taking place, I think an important thing is to ask the questions in the spaces that we're in. So one important question that I'd say in my space would be important to ask is, have you done an environmental assessment? Because sometimes people want to cut corners and not do an environmental assessment, and yet it is a law by the country to do it. So I think if we keep asking the questions and demanding such questions, that is that environmental assessment done, because that also involves speaking with the communities, that will really ensure that developments that are put up are in line with the entire environment and really reduce ecocide. Yes, that's for me.
Thank you so much. Salsalina, you want to go next?
Yes, of course. When it comes to raising your voice for advocacy, I believe I'll link it back to my previous advice, which is to do your research, to read, because what we need is facts to convince people. And I know I truly understand that it can be really frightening to raise your concerns, because I honestly come from a country that is not at the best geopolitical situation right now. So I totally get you. But it would be best if you could publish or educate yourself, or at least familiarize yourself with the issues, because that is just the first step to raising awareness, not only for yourself, but for the people around you. Because most of the times, people don't even know that they need to be aware of a particular issue. So that concludes that you just need to make yourself familiar and remember to publish the smallest things possible, or even laterally do your own research and publish it in a more amicable sense for your advocacy. Thank you.
Thank you. Alex, you got the pleasure to close this round.
Thank you so much for all these wonderful talks and also answers. And what I'm hearing, and this is the advantage of being the last one, it's educate, advocate, know what you're talking about, talk to a lot of people. And that's a little bit what I wanted to add in that. It's to connect, to join meetings like the one here, and you might be surprised who is on your side. You might also be surprised who is not on your side. But there's a lot of people out there, a lot of people that really want to push for environmental justice. And even though the political situation in the world is dire on that, the problems are not getting less. And there are really so many people just 24/7 working on that. And, the exposure to just go out and see what's happening, I think that would be my advice.
Thank you so much, everyone. And it really feels like we built a roadmap with your contributions. It's very clear to me, starting with research and making your own mind, to going outside and raising awareness, sharing your thoughts in whatever way you feel most comfortable, and make companies, decision makers accountable for their acts, even organizing ecocide law competitions or school camps, and eventually connect and network. I think this is a very strong roadmap for advocacy and also quite clear. So thank you everyone for building it together. And indeed, events are something that are a tool for sharing knowledge and also for bringing together like-minded young people. And this is what Youth for Ecocide Law and the fantastic team at Stop Ecocide Students Ambassadors are doing this week. There is going to be a series of physical events taking place starting from today. Actually, I think one already took place a few hours ago in Tanzania, where students came together to discuss about the rights of nature, indigenous people rights, environmental law. Tonight, there will be one event at Leiden University. There will be a screening of a movie, Common Good, I think. And so if you are in Leiden in the Netherlands, please feel free to join at the university. On the 25th of April, there will be a discussion at Kenyatta University from 2 to 4 p.m. in Nairobi. So maybe Paris and Charity will be free to attend and also to share some more of their arts. And there is many other events taking place around the world. So I want to invite you in closure to follow our social media channels and to stay up to tune with what we are organizing at Youth for Ecocide Law and Stop Ecocide International, and also to register to our newsletter that we send every month with updates on ecocide law developments and other activities that we organize. And in conclusion, I just want to share a line that the time for ecocide law is now, and everyone has a role to play in this, including young people. So I hope that you will be inspired from today's conversation from these amazing speakers who shared their knowledge in such a simple way. And this is, I think, also something that is missing from our space, the climate space, the environmental space, its clarity, its simplicity. And I think we as young people have such a power to simplify and to make people not as hard as they seem, that we really need to be engaged. So we need to fight on the same side of this climate breakdown, which is the side of Earth. And I want to wish you again a wonderful and pleasant and impactful as possible International Mother Earth Day 2025. And if you have any questions, either for us or for the speakers, please feel free to reach out to our social media or our email. And yeah, I guess that's it. Unless there is some questions, since we have a few minutes left, maybe we can take a couple of questions for our speakers. If you have any question, you can write them in the chat. Let's see. I see a question from Christophe. Anyone can take it from the speakers. Feel free to raise your hand or just open your mic. He is asking, what can youth best do in countries where there's a manifest and consistent targeted persecution of environmental activists and journalists, for example, by the government? I think this is a very, very important question. Anyone can take it, please. Feel free to.
I think I could take it because it's been happening in my country recently, unfortunately. But if I may share, the best way for you to keep advocating despite the persecution on journalists or environmental activists is to use the soft approach. What does it mean by using the soft approach? Well, you don't directly state that you advocate for an issue, but you use other mediums such as what Paris and Charity have performed art. I think that's really helpful, and it creates a sense of relation towards your audience. And also research. Actually, research really helps because most of my lecturers are environmental activists, but they become activists by publishing a paper, publishing blogs, instead of directly demonstrating in front of the government's office, because that can threaten their safety. But when you publish papers, you're not only indirectly showing this to the government, but you're also targeting students and other enthusiasts of the environment to learn about an issue. So I really hope that answers your question. Thank you. Perhaps other speakers can add on to what I've been talking about. Sophie.
Well, I can tell you my personal experience in conclusion. I used to work for a youth organization that was focused a lot on supporting indigenous communities in Ecuador. And one way for the communities there to be empowered was indeed to team up with young people working from other countries in the world. So I would say one way to be also more safeguarded somehow, although it's not something that I'm so involved about, but still, I remember the experience from these indigenous people is to be connected with people from all over the world, to be part of the network. Because by even just talking about what's going on in your community, you can understand maybe there's some better ways to address the issue, or maybe you're being exploited and you don't even realize because it seems like it's normality to you. So, opening up to other cultures, traditions, ideas, either indigenous and non-indigenous, to collaborate with other teams can definitely give you additional tools. But of course, as Salsalina said, I think indeed also having a soft approach can be quite important, and also for your safety, I would say you got to take things carefully. Indeed, in some contexts, must be very dangerous indeed, but still very, very important to take action. All right. If there's no other question for our speakers, then I will conclude today's webinar. Thanks again to both speakers and all participants, and also to those that will watch the live stream later on our social for being with us. And I wish everyone a wonderful International Mother Earth Day. Thank you.